Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Lock On podcast. Another not crazy busy week in the world of gaming. So we thought as we hit the end of the month of October, obviously Halloween around the corner, we're going to do a little bit of fun. We have a couple things lined up for our favorite villains, our favorite video games, horror-based video games in this generation, so Xbox One, PS4 only, and our favorite horror games of all time. Now, before we jump into that, let me just introduce you to our regular panel. We've got Sean, and we also have Tim. So we'll just get a small update. Sean, what are you playing this week?
I put G.I. Joe on hold because of the Call of Duty beta because I was playing that all weekend, and I had to catch up on some horror movies because I'm on a horror podcast this weekend. But G.I. Joe, that's still coming.
I know you spoiled it a little bit last time, but how are you feeling about the game now?
Here's the problem with the game. Like I said it last week that none of the people play very different, and that still remains true. It's just based on their weapon. But this game makes you go to and from, because you're playing from both perspectives of G.I. Joe and Cobra. You literally will go through a level, then start as G.I. Joe and play back through the same level to go back to the beginning of the level. So that's how they pad out this game.
That's fun. I'm very excited to read your review when it comes out.
It'll be out this week.
It'll be out this week. Perfect. Tim, what do you got going on over there? What's in the world?
I dipped my toes in the Black Ops beta as well. I didn't play it all weekend because I was really wanting to. There's something about Cloudpunk that is just delightfully tasty, and it's grown on me. But I was just there was so much of it that was just very, very. I don't know. It maybe it's the sound design, but there's something about it that just feels very sleepy and like makes me very sleepy. And so I've been trying to play through that mostly. I think honestly, it's a lot of that kind of digital ambiance music.
Yeah.
Lots of.
So it sounds like after you're done the Call of Duty beta, this is the perfect game to kind of relax and calm down a little bit with.
And it has grown on me a lot. When I first started playing it, I was like, man, you can tell these are, these voice actors are not the typical voice actors we're used to in games. They're a lot more. They sound more like normal people than professional actors. Mm-hmm. But as the game's gone on, I really got to hand it to them. It's drawn me in. There's a lot of stuff that I think if they had a bigger budget would be a lot smoother. But so it's hard to hold that stuff against them. Honestly, all the flaws I have with the game so far have been things that really feel like they just come down to budget constraints.
Yeah.
Which I think is a positive thing to say about an indie game. It's clear the team making it really had a vision. And I am enjoying it. It's just sometimes it feels like I'm fighting against a sleeping pill to play it.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I mean, there's something there, especially for people that like a real narrative-driven game. Most of the gameplay is pretty. If the gameplay didn't have the narrative behind it, it'd be very dull. But there's a real interesting kind of examination of what it means to be human when the value of a human life is next to nothing, because you're in this mega metropolis that is thousands of years old, and the AI that runs the city hasn't even talked back to anybody in 500 years.
Well, I will say I don't want you to give away too much of it.
Well, no, this is all stuff you learn pretty quickly. It's just it's a very interesting game, and especially it feels like a cerebral, thoughtful experience in a way a lot of games aren't. So I'm excited to see it through.
I am looking forward to reading your review on it. It definitely seems like an interesting one. And I'm your host, Kyle. For me, I'm not actually reviewing anything right now like these two are. I'm actually just kind of in my little zone. I feel like there's a lot of games I'm waiting for the Series X to come out and kind of try on / play again. So I'm just kind of doing a lot of the multiplayer games right now. I'm still playing Gears 5. Just finished the COD beta. Definitely had enjoyed it for the most part. And I got back into Destiny when the COVID pandemic obviously started. I started back up and I hadn't played it since like year one, before the first DLC had even come out. And I gotta say, I am enjoying it for what it is. Like, it's kind of like a fun grind. It's, a couple of my friends are playing it. I got to play with a few of them and did a few, raids, which are always a good time. So yeah, just kind of the basic stuff. Nothing too fancy right now. But with that said, let's kind of jump into our Halloween episode. So we're going to be talking about, to start, because it is the end of the generation and our final Halloween with these two as our primary consoles, PS4 and Xbox One. I thought it'd be interesting to see. I believe most of us here are pretty decently into horror games for the most part. I think we can agree on that. I'm not huge, but I definitely dabble in it. So I think we're going to start with Sean. Sean, we'll start with your runner-up. We'll go around, everyone can kind of say their runner-up first, followed by their top. So what's going to be your runner-up for this generation's best horror game?
Resident Evil 2 remake.
Yes, I thought you were going to say that.
Resident Evil. Okay, well, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I kind of need to for the context. Resident Evil 2 is my favorite horror game, period. The first one, I probably wouldn't play it anymore, but I had that first playthrough in such high esteem. The zapping system where you could basically switch between playing, you could either play as Claire or Leon to start, and then once you finish them, you start as the other person, and it gave you basically 4 different scenarios. Like all that stuff, I just genuinely loved it, and I love the story and everything. So the remake I was like, let's see what they do. And I fucking love that game. Like, I think it's incredible. Like, it's genuinely one of my favorite games of the generation, period. Not with or without the horror qualifier. I think it's a perfect example of what a remake should be. And I just think it's a genuinely excellent game.
Now, for context, did you start the remake of Resident Evil? Did you play one prior to this as a remake?
Oh no, the Resident Evil remake I didn't play.
So you just went right to this as like your first kind of remake, because I know they've obviously gone all the way up to 3 now.
Yeah, because Resident Evil's remake isn't like this. The Resident Evil remake, I mean, I dabbled in it, but it's more like, it still feels kind of like the older games. It doesn't.
It's more of an homage, you would say.
Yeah, it doesn't. This feels like a completely different game set in the same exact place, location, universe, story kind of thing. Obviously, the story's a little bit different, but for the most part, this just felt like they were trying to make it. They're trying to change Resident Evil.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like the other one was trying, like, kind of straddled the line. Mm-hmm. This one is like, no, this is a brand new game.
Did they, now in your opinion, obviously 7 had come out prior to this remake. Obviously 7 is not the same in terms of first person, and we won't get into that too much right now. But do you felt with 2 they kind of took what they wanted to do with 7, the more cinematic feel of the game, and kind of put that in there a lot more compared to past Resident Evils?
You know what? I mean, we kind of do have to litigate the Resident Evil 7 thing because that's context, but I didn't play Resident Evil. I played about 30 minutes of Resident Evil 7. I turned it off. I'm not somebody who I think Resident Evil should be third person. It's not Resident Evil to me if it's in first person. Yeah. That's like taking Call of Duty and making it into a third person game. It's just not, that's not what it is. Even though I did enjoy the in Modern Warfare 2, the
I do remember that. I believe there was actually talk about there was supposed
making
to be
it a third person. Yeah, but I don't think it was going to play like that. I think all they did was just pull the camera back and you see your character. Yeah. It's still controlled exactly the same. But like, I mean, that was just a game mode. This isn't like you're trying to reinvent the whole thing. So I don't really like Resident Evil. I can't say I didn't like Resident Evil 7. I just didn't give into it because it never felt like I was playing a Resident Evil game. So I can't really speak to that part of it. But I do feel like what I like is that Capcom recognized that there are going to be people who don't, like me, who don't want Resident Evil in first person. So they made 2 and 3 for people like me, and hopefully 4 for people like me who like want to keep that third person part of it going. After that, I have no idea what they're going to do because 8 is clearly in first person. So
yeah,
I 100% agree. And I think I was going to go to Tim, but I feel like I should definitely already come back to me because my runner-up, believe it or not, is Resident Evil 7. Now, it's interesting because I have it's a perfect way to really show what video games do when you have a different perspective. Sean, you come in as more of a Resident Evil veteran. You kind of know the series. Me, myself, I played 5 co-op. So obviously, and it was back when, I was just entering high school. So I didn't really care about the story too much. It was just a fun co-op game. And I dabbled in 6 a little bit as a co-op game. And I borrowed 7 from a coworker because, she said it was really good. And I had dabbled a little bit in the first person horror genre, Amnesia. What's the one you guys will probably, what's the game that takes place in the insane asylum? Outlast.
Outlast.
Outlast. Yeah. So I dabbled that and I enjoyed it. So I tried 7 and I loved it. I loved it. I know reading online, because I didn't really read into it. It's probably a couple of months after it had already come out. I didn't really read into what people were saying about it. And I was like, oh, wow, like this is it was a great setup. It was a great story. I felt like they did a good job with the characters, especially like the family, making them really creepy. And then, I don't want to spoil.